The autumn sun poured golden light over the fields of St. Michael's Farm in Virginia. It was one of those perfect days that seemed especially created for happy memories. Henry Coleman watched from the porch of the colonial house, holding a cup of still steaming coffee while his children ran freely across the property. "Dad, look!" shouted Lily, just 7 years old, holding up a little red airplane that gleamed against the blue sky. "It's going to fly all the way to the clouds." Henry smiled. Since Ellen had passed away 3 years ago, victim of a sudden illness, Lily had become his reason for living. The girl possessed a contagious energy that could illuminate even the darkest days. Her brown curls danced in the wind as she ran through the fields, always accompanied by Peter, her brother, who was 4 years older. "Lily, wait for me!" Peter shouted, trying to catch up with her. At 11 years old, he still maintained that special connection with his younger sister, playing with her as if he were a child himself. Henry took a sip of coffee and felt a rare peace. After difficult years, it finally seemed like the family had found its balance. The farm was prospering, the children were doing well at the town school, and he had learned to be both father and mother at the same time. "Peter, be careful with your sister," he shouted from the porch, more out of habit than real concern. "Don't worry, Dad," Peter answered, without stopping running. Lily stopped near a small pond and held the little airplane high. The toy was her most precious treasure, a gift that Ellen had given on the daughter's last birthday. The vibrant red contrasted perfectly with the green of the fields. "Now it's really going to fly," she murmured to herself, with the seriousness that only children can have in their games. Peter approached, out of breath. There was something different in his gaze that day, a restlessness that Henry couldn't decipher from a distance. The boy observed his sister with a strange expression, as if he were fighting an internal battle. "Peter, are you okay?" Lily asked, noticing her brother's strange behavior. "Yes, I am," he answered quickly, forcing a smile. "Do you want me to help you make the airplane fly higher?" "Yes," she exclaimed, placing the toy in her brother's hands. Peter held the little airplane carefully, but his hands trembled slightly. Henry, still on the porch, furrowed his brow. There was something different in the air, a tension he couldn't identify. "Lily," Peter called with a lower voice. "Before we play, don't you want to drink that juice I brought? It's in my backpack over there." The girl looked where he was pointing. A blue school backpack was leaning against a nearby tree. "What juice?" she asked, curious. "It's apple, your favorite. I bought it especially for you at the school cafeteria," Peter lied, avoiding his sister's gaze. Henry observed the scene without being able to hear the conversation, but something in his chest began to tighten. It was an inexplicable sensation, as if the universe was about to collapse again. Lily ran to the backpack and found a small bottle with clear liquid. The label said, "apple juice," but there was something strange about the smell when she opened. "Tasty, it smells different," she commented, wrinkling her nose. "That's because it's natural, without preservatives," Peter said quickly. "Mom always said natural ones were better, remember?" The mention of their mother made Lily smile and pushed away any suspicion. She drank the contents of the bottle in one go, made a face at the bitter taste, but didn't complain. "Can I play now?" she asked, already running back to where her brother was. Peter nodded, but his face was pale. They played for a few more minutes, running through the fields with the red airplane. The perfect afternoon continued, but there was an invisible shadow hovering over that happiness. Henry finished his coffee and decided to join his children. He was going down the porch steps when he saw Lily stop abruptly. The girl put her hand on her stomach and looked around in confusion. "Peter," she called with a weak voice. The red airplane slipped from her hands and fell onto the grass. Then her legs gave way and she fell forward without any reaction. The world stopped. "Lily!" Peter screamed, running to her. Henry felt his heart leap from his chest and dashed toward his children, knowing that his life was about to change forever once again. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. The corridor of St. Teresa's Hospital was too silent for a place that should pulse with life. Henry walked back and forth, his hands trembling and his eyes red from exhaustion. and despair. 6 hours had already passed since they arrived there in an ambulance with Lily unconscious in his arms. Peter was sitting in a blue plastic chair, holding his sister's red airplane as if it were a talisman. His eyes were fixed on the floor, and he hadn't spoken a word since they arrived at the hospital. When anyone tried to talk to him, he just shook his head in silence. "Mr. Coleman." The doctor's voice echoed down the corridor. Henry turned quickly. Dr. Marianne Foster was a respected neurologist with more than 20 years of experience. Her face, normally serene, carried an expression of perplexity that made the father's heartbeat even faster. "How is she?" Henry asked, his voice breaking. "We need to talk," the doctor answered, indicating a private room. "Peter, you can come too." The boy raised his eyes for the first time in hours. There was something there that Henry couldn't decipher. Fear, guilt, or just the shock of seeing his sister in that state. In the room, Dr. Marianne closed the door and invited them to sit. Henry remained standing, too restless to settle down. "Lily's situation is unusual," she began, leafing through a chart. "We've done all possible tests, CT scan, MRI, complete blood work, spinal fluid analysis. And," Henry interrupted, impatient, "neurologically she has entered a deep coma, but we haven't found any apparent cause. There are no signs of trauma, infection, tumor, or brain injury. It's as if," she hesitated, "as if her brain simply turned off." Peter squeezed the airplane more tightly, and his hands began to visibly tremble. "Is that possible?" Henry asked. "Incredulous, and it's extremely rare, but I've seen similar cases. Sometimes the organism enters a state of protection for reasons that medicine still doesn't completely understand," the doctor explained. "But there's something else that intrigues me." She opened a folder with test results and pointed to numbers. That meant nothing to Henry. The levels of some substances in Lily's blood are altered, but in a very subtle way, almost imperceptible. If it weren't for the cutting-edge equipment we have here, we wouldn't have even detected it. "What kind of substances?" Henry inquired, feeling a shiver run down his spine. "We're still investigating. They could be a consequence of the coma itself, or—" She stopped as if measuring her words. "Or what, doctor?" "Or they might indicate that she ingested something unusual before fainting, something that shouldn't be in a child's system." The silence in the room became deafening. Peter had stopped breathing for a moment, and the airplane slipped from his hands, falling to the floor with a dull thud. "Do you remember if she ate or drank anything different today?" the doctor asked, looking directly at Peter. The boy raised his eyes, and Henry saw something there that he had never noticed before. A deep shadow, a weight that shouldn't exist in the eyes of an 11-year-old child. "No," Peter whispered. "She just played with me in the field. She didn't eat anything." "Strange," Henry observed his son carefully. There was something in the way Peter spoke, an almost imperceptible hesitation that awakened his paternal instinct. "Dr. Marianne, what's the prognosis?" he asked, changing the subject. "Honestly, we don't know. Comas of this nature can last days, weeks, months, or even longer. Lily's brain is functioning, but at a very low level. It's as if she were in a very distant place." "Can she hear us?" "It's possible. Many patients in comas report after waking up that they could hear familiar voices. That's why I recommend that you talk to her, tell stories, maintain a constant presence." Henry nodded, determined. He wouldn't leave his daughter's side for even a moment. "And the tests, when will we have more results about these strange substances?" "In 48 hours, we'll have a more complete picture. We're sending samples to specialized laboratories in New York." They left the room in silence. Peter followed with his head down, dragging his feet along the corridor. Henry observed him with growing concern. The boy seemed to carry a burden, too heavy for his age. "Peter," Henry called, placing his hand on his son's shoulder, "are you sure you don't remember anything different today? Any detail could be important to help Lily." Peter raised his eyes, and for a moment, Henry was certain that his son was about to say something important. But then the boy shook his head again. "No, Dad, I don't remember anything." They entered the ICU, where Lily was surrounded by machines that emitted constant beeps. She looked even smaller in that hospital bed, pale as a sleeping angel. Peter approached his sister and whispered something that Henry couldn't hear. At night, while Peter slept in an improvised armchair, Henry held his daughter's hand and spoke softly. "Lily, my love, you need to come back to us. We don't know what happened, but we'll find out. Daddy promises that he'll find out." From the other side of the room, Peter opened his eyes and stared at his father with a tortured expression, as if Henry's words were knives in his chest. A week had passed since Lily was admitted. St. Teresa's Hospital had become Henry's second home, and he practically never left the pediatric ICU. Peter alternated between school and the hospital, always carrying colorful drawings that he made for his sister, but his behavior was becoming increasingly strange. "Lily, I brought a new drawing." "For you?" Peter whispered beside the bed, holding a sheet of paper where he had drawn the three of them together on the farm. "It's the three of us, like before." Henry observed his son with growing concern. There was something in Peter's words, a deep melancholy that didn't match his age. The boy seemed to carry an invisible weight that was consuming him from within. "Peter, son, you need to rest. You've barely slept for 3 nights, Henry said, approaching. "I can't, Dad. What if she needs me and I'm not here?" Peter replied, his eyes fixed on his sister's pale face. "She knows you love her. You don't need to punish yourself like this." The word punish made Peter shrink in his chair. Henry noticed the reaction, but didn't understand its meaning. That afternoon, Dr. Marianne brought the results of the specialized tests. Her face carried an even more worried expression than before. "Mr. Coleman, I need to speak with you," she said, indicating the corridor. Henry followed the doctor, leaving Peter beside Lily. When they were alone, she opened a folder with technical documents. "The results have arrived from New York. The substances found in Lily's blood are disturbing." "What do you mean?" "We found traces of chemical compounds that shouldn't be in a child's system. These are substances that, in small quantities, can cause exactly the symptoms she presented: sudden loss of consciousness and deep coma." Phantom felt the world spin around him. "Are you saying that my daughter was blood poisoned?" "It's a possibility we can't rule out, but the quantities are so small that it would be almost impossible to detect in conventional tests. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. That's impossible. Who would do such a thing to an innocent child?" The doctor hesitated before continuing. "Mr. Coleman, I know it's painful to think about this, but I need to ask, is there anyone close to the family who would have easy access to Lily? Someone who was with her on the day of the incident?" Henry's heart accelerated. Peter. He was with Lily the whole time that day, but it was unthinkable, impossible. Peter loved his sister more than anything in the world. "No," he answered firmly. "There's no one who would do this to her." Returning to the ICU, Henry found a scene that disturbed him even more. Peter was holding Lily's hand and speaking softly, with tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, Lily. I didn't want it to be like this. I just wanted—" He stopped when he noticed his father's presence. "Peter, what were you saying?" "Nothing. Dad, I was just talking to her," the boy answered quickly, wiping away his tears. That night, while Peter slept, a nurse approached Henry with hesitation. It was Mrs. Connie, a 50-year-old woman who had worked at the hospital for decades. "Mr. Henry, may I speak with you?" she asked in a low voice. "Of course, Mrs. Connie." "It's about your daughter. I know it may seem strange, but—" She looked around as if afraid of being heard. "I've seen cases like this before." "What do you mean?" "Children in comas without apparent cause. And there was a case a few years ago of a boy who helped a family in a similar situation." Henry furrowed his brow. "What kind of help?" He was able to communicate with people who were unconscious. I know it sounds crazy, but I saw it with my own eyes. The boy touched the forehead of a child in a coma, and the next day she woke up." "Mrs. Connie, with all due respect, but that's impossible." "I thought so too, but when it comes to the life of a child, there's no impossible that can stand in the way, is there?" Henry looked at Lily, so fragile in that hospital bed, Medicine wasn't managing to help her. The doctors had no answers. Perhaps it was time to consider other possibilities. Where does this boy live? On the outskirts of Charleston. He's a humble boy, lives with his grandmother, never charges anything, never seeks fame. They say it's a gift he's had since he was little. What's his name? Caleb. Caleb Sanders. Henry felt something stir in his chest. It wasn't quite hope. It was more like desperation transforming into courage. Can you give me his address? Mrs. Connie hesitated. Mr. Henry, I need to warn you. The boy is very reserved. He doesn't like attention. And there are conditions for him to help. What conditions? He doesn't want to be sought out afterward by doctors, press, or authorities. He doesn't do this for fame or money. He does it because he feels that he should. Henry nodded. At that moment, he was willing to accept any condition if it could bring his daughter back. I'll look for him tomorrow. From the other side of the room, Peter opened his eyes and heard the entire conversation. His face contorted in an expression of pure panic. If someone could really talk to Lily, if she could tell what had happened. The boy clenched his fists and whispered to himself, "It can't be, she can't wake up, not like this." Henry's car moved slowly through the potholed streets of the Hope District on the outskirts of Charleston. It was a completely different world from what he knew. Small, colorful houses, barefoot children playing in the red earth, women hanging clothes on improvised clotheslines. The car's GPS had stopped working miles ago, and he was following the instructions noted on a crumpled piece of paper. 3rd Street on the right, house with a blue gate, no number, he murmured to himself, driving slowly. Finally, he found the address. It was a simple house, 2 stories, with walls painted light blue and a small garden in front where some resilient plants grew. Henry parked and took a deep breath. Part of him still couldn't believe what he was doing. He knocked on the door 3 times. The sound echoed in the afternoon silence. After a few minutes, the door opened, revealing a boy of approximately 12 years old. Caleb Sanders had brown skin, curly hair, and dark eyes that seemed much older than his age. He was barefoot and wore a simple T-shirt and shorts. What impressed Henry most was the boy's gaze. It was as if he already knew why he was there, even before any word was spoken. "You're the girl's father," Caleb said. It wasn't a question. Henry was momentarily speechless. "How did you—" "I dreamed about her last night. A girl with brown curls with a red airplane. She was trying to talk to me, but something was preventing it." Caleb spoke with disconcerting naturalness. A shiver ran down Henry's spine. "Can you help her?" "I can try. But first I need you to understand something. I don't perform miracles. I just hear voices that others can't hear. The hospital nurse told me about your conditions. Then you know that I don't want attention afterward. I don't want doctors, reporters, or police at my door. I do this because I feel that I should, not for fame or money." Henry nodded quickly. "I just want my daughter back." Caleb studied the face of the man in front of him for a long moment. There was pain there, but also pure and desperate love. "I'll go with you," he said finally, "but I need to warn my grandmother first." The boy went into the house, and Henry heard a brief conversation in low voices. When Caleb returned, he brought only a small backpack. "Let's go," he said simply. During the journey to the hospital, Caleb remained silent, looking out the window. Henry tried to make conversation a few times, but realized that the boy needed concentration. "Caleb, may I ask how you discovered that you had this gift?" "I've always heard voices that others couldn't hear," the boy answered, without taking his eyes from the window. "When I was younger, I thought it was normal. Until the day I helped a man from our street who had fainted. I could hear what he was trying to say. And your family, do they know?" "My grandmother knows. She says it's a blessing and a responsibility, that I can't use it for my own benefit." At the hospital, Caleb's arrival caused some curious looks. Mrs. Connie was the first to recognize him and made a point of accompanying them to the ICU. "How is she today?" Henry asked, noticing that Peter wasn't in the room. "Stable. Your son went to the cafeteria a few minutes ago," the nurse answered. Caleb approached the bed where Lily was lying. Her monitors emitted the constant beeps that had already become the soundtrack of those terrible days. The boy observed the girl's pale face for a long moment. "May I touch her?" he asked. Henry hesitated for a second, but then nodded. Caleb gently placed his hand on Lily's forehead. At that instant, the lights in the room flickered. The monitors emitted brief alerts. The air seemed to become denser, charged with a strange energy. Mrs. Connie took a step back, frightened. Henry felt the hair on his arms stand on end. Caleb closed his eyes and remained motionless for several minutes. His breathing became slower and deeper. Suddenly he began to whisper words that no one could understand, as if he were conversing with someone very distant. "Lily, I hear you," he murmured. "You're trying to come back, but something is holding you there." Henry held his breath. "She's showing images," Caleb continued, still with his eyes closed. "A green field, a red airplane, and then—" His expression became tense. "Something sweet on the palate, but that shouldn't be there." "What else?" Henry asked. "Anxious. She's afraid to show more, as if she were protecting someone." Suddenly, Caleb opened his eyes and fixed them directly on Henry. "Sir, your daughter was poisoned." The words fell like lightning in Henry's chest, even though he already suspected it. "Does she know who did this?" Caleb hesitated, his expression becoming even more grave. "She knows, but she doesn't want to show. It's someone she loves very much, someone she doesn't want to suffer the consequences." At that moment, Peter appeared in the doorway. When he saw Caleb with his hand on Lily's forehead, his face completely paled. "Who is this boy?" Peter asked with a trembling voice. "He's someone who can help your sister," Henry answered. Caleb turned his face toward Peter, and for a moment the two locked eyes. There was something in the mystical boy's gaze that made Peter shrink against the wall. "She's trying to show me something else," Caleb whispered, turning his attention back to Lily. "A blue backpack, a small bottle, someone she completely trusts." Peter let out a low moan and ran out of the room. Henry looked from Caleb to the door through which his son had exited, and a terrible understanding began to form in his mind. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. Henry found Peter in the hospital garden, sitting on a concrete bench with his face in his hands. The boy was crying silently, his shoulders trembling with each contained sob. The sight broke the father's heart, but it also awakened a terrible suspicion that he didn't want to accept. "Peter," Henry called softly, sitting down beside his son. The boy raised his face, and Henry saw there a suffering too deep for an 11-year-old child. Peter's red eyes weren't just from sadness about his sick sister, but from a devastating guilt. "Dad, Peter began, but his voice failed. "Son, what were you trying to tell me in the hospital, when you were talking to Lily about apologies?" Peter closed his eyes tightly, as if he could make that moment disappear. "I didn't want it to be like this, Dad. I swear I didn't want it to be like this." Henry's heart accelerated. The pieces were beginning to fit together in a way that he desperately didn't want to accept. "Peter, look at me," he said, gently holding his son's face. "What did you do?" "I just wanted you to see me, Dad," Peter exploded in tears. "Since Mom left, you only have eyes for Lily. She's your little princess, your favorite, and I'm invisible." Henry felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "Peter, that's not true. I love you both equally." "It's not true," the boy shouted. "You smile differently at her. You have patience with her mischief. With me, you only talk about responsibility, about being the older brother, about taking care of her. I can never just be myself." Tears streamed down Peter's face, and Henry realized that he had failed as a father in a way he hadn't even imagined. "And because of that he couldn't finish the sentence. "I got some sleeping pills from the town pharmacy. I said they were for you, that you had insomnia. I crushed them and mixed them with the apple juice," Peter confessed between sobs. "I just wanted her to sleep a little. I just wanted you to be worried about me too, to ask me how I was, to hug me like you hug her." Henry felt the world crumble around him for the second time in a few days. "Peter, do you have any idea what you did? Your sister has been in a coma. For a week." "I know," the boy shouted. "I know, and it kills me every day. I didn't know it would be like this. The internet said it was just for sleeping. I didn't want to hurt her, Dad. I love Lily more than anything." "Then why didn't you tell the truth from the beginning?" "Because I was afraid that you would hate me forever, that you would send me away, that you would choose her instead of me." Henry pulled his son into a desperate embrace. Both were crying. Now father and son united in the pain of an unbearable truth. "Peter, I would never send you away. You're my son and I love you. But now I need to save your sister." "How?" "I need to tell the doctors exactly what she took. Maybe there's still time to reverse the effects." Peter moved away from the embrace, terrified. "Will they arrest me?" "I don't know, son. But I can't let Lily die to protect you. You understand that, don't you?" Peter nodded through tears. "I understand. I deserve whatever happens to me." "Don't say that. You're a child who made a terrible mistake, but you're still my child." They returned to the hospital hand in hand. In the ICU, Caleb was still beside Lily, but now his expression was different. "Mr. Henry," he said upon seeing them arrive. "She's trying to wake up. I managed to hear more things." "Caleb, we already know what happened," Henry interrupted. "Peter told me everything." The mystical boy looked at Peter with an expression not of judgment, but of deep understanding. "She knew you were suffering," Caleb said to Peter. "That's why she didn't want to show me. She loves you and didn't want you to get in trouble." Peter collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed by emotion. "I don't deserve her love." "Love isn't about deserving," Caleb responded with the strange wisdom of someone who has lived more than their age would suggest. "It's about choosing to forgive and start over." Dr. Marianne was urgently called. When Henry told the whole truth, even showing the medicine box that Peter had used, she rushed to prepare the appropriate antidote. "There's still time," she said upon returning. "If we can reverse the effects in the next few hours, she has a good chance of complete recovery." The medication was administered to Lily through the IV. Caleb remained by her side, holding hands, as if guiding her back. "She's coming," he whispered. "She's coming home." 2 hours later, Lily opened her eyes for the first time in a week. Her first word was, "Peter?" The boy approached the bed, crying. "Lily, forgive me. Please, forgive me." "I already forgave you," she said, with a weak but clear voice. "I just wanted you to know that Daddy loves you as much as he loves me." Peter kissed his sister's forehead, and Henry embraced his 2 children, knowing that his family was finally reunited again, but that they still had a long healing path ahead. Caleb observed the scene from the corner of the room, smiling discreetly, knowing that his mission there was complete. 2 weeks passed since Lily woke up. The hospital room had transformed into a small, colorful universe, filled with drawings, flowers, and cards from people who had heard the story. The girl was recovering quickly in the physical aspect, but everyone knew that the emotional scars would take longer to heal. Peter remained beside his sister's bed practically every day. There was something different about him now, a maturity forced by circumstances, but also a palpable relief for no longer carrying the terrible weight of the secret. "Lily, do you want me to read another chapter?" Peter asked, holding a book of children's stories. "Yes," she answered, nestling into the pillows, "but only if you promise that afterward we'll play with the airplane." The red airplane was on the bedside table, patiently waiting to fly again over the farm fields. Henry observed his children from the armchair nearby, participating in a video call with the child psychologist he had hired. Dr. Regina Fields was a specialist in family traumas and had made it clear that the healing process would be long. "Mr. Henry, it's fundamental that you maintain this environment of openness," she was saying through the tablet screen. "Peter needs to feel that he can express his feelings without fear of rejection. But how did I not notice that he was suffering so much?" Guilt doesn't help anyone now. The important thing is to move forward. Children often express emotional pain through behaviors we don't understand. Jealousy is natural, especially when a child loses their mother so young. Henry looked at Peter, who was reading dedicatedly to Lily. It was painful to think that his son had carried so much resentment. In silence. What do I do to not repeat the same mistakes? Individual time with each child is essential. Peter needs to know that he has his exclusive space with you, just as Lily has hers. After the call, Henry approached his children. Peter, how about we go for a walk in the garden? Just the two of us. The boy raised his eyes, surprised. And Lily? I'll stay here, she said quickly. I want to draw a bit. In the hospital garden, father and son walked in silence for a few minutes. It was the first time they had been alone since the confession. Dad, do you still love me? Peter suddenly asked. Henry stopped and knelt in front of his son. Peter, look into my eyes. I love you more than all the stars in the sky. What you did was wrong, but that doesn't change the love I feel for you. But I could have. Peter couldn't complete the sentence. You could have, but it didn't happen. Lily is fine, you two are fine, and now we're going to learn to be a better family. How? I promise that we'll have our special time, just the two of us. And I want you to always tell me when you're feeling sad or angry. Deal? Peter nodded, hugging his father tightly. When they returned to the ESI room, they found a surprise. Caleb was there, chatting quietly with Lily. The boy had appeared discreetly, as was his custom. Caleb, Lily exclaimed upon seeing Henry and Peter. He brought something for me. Caleb smiled shyly and showed a small wooden bird, hand-carved. I made it for you, he said simply, to remind you that we can always fly again, no matter what happens. Lily held the gift carefully, as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. It's beautiful. But why did you make this? Because you taught me something important, Caleb answered. That true love always forgives. Henry was moved by the boy's words. There was a wisdom in that child that constantly impressed him. Caleb, how can I thank you for everything you've done for our family? You don't need to thank me, but... He hesitated. If you really want to help, there are many children in my neighborhood who need opportunities. What kind of opportunities? Better school doctor when they get sick, food every day. My grandmother always says that those who can help should help. Henry felt something ignite in his chest. For years he had focused only on his own family, on his business, on his private world. Perhaps it was time to look beyond. Can you show me your neighborhood? Talk to the people there. I can, but only if it's for real. I don't like people who promise and then forget. It will be for real, Henry promised. That afternoon, after Caleb left, the Coleman family had their first truly open conversation. Peter talked about his feelings, his insecurities, his fears. Lily, with the natural innocence of children, said that she never doubted her brother's love. Even after what happened? Peter asked, incredulous. Especially after what happened, she answered, because I saw how sad you were. Bad people don't get sad when they hurt others. Dr. Marianne came to give the good news at the end of the day. Lily would be discharged the next day. But I want to see you here next week for follow-up. And don't forget the sessions with the psychologist. Doctor, Henry said, I want to make a donation to the hospital, especially for the pediatric ICU. That would be wonderful. Mr. Henry. That night, for the first time in weeks, Henry slept deeply. His children were well, his family was rebuilding, and he had discovered a purpose greater than his own happiness. Peter held Lily's hand while she slept, whispering, I promise that I'll be the best brother in the world from now on. And for the first time since everything began, the future seemed full of luminous possibilities. 1 month after Lily's discharge, Henry was driving again through the streets of Hope District. This time he wasn't alone. Lily and Peter accompanied him, eager to see the place where the boy who had saved their lives lived. Dad, it's very different from our house, Lily observed, looking out the window at the simple, colorful buildings. Different doesn't mean worse, daughter, Henry answered, remembering the psychologist's words about not judging different realities. I know, she said with the serenity that had always characterized her. I'm just observing. Peter remained quiet in the back seat, absorbing every detail. Since the conversation at the hospital, he had shown himself to be more reflective, as if trying to understand the world beyond his own needs. They parked in front of Caleb's house. This time, it was an elderly lady who answered the door. It was Mrs. Mary, Caleb's grandmother, a small woman but with a striking presence with grey hair tied in a bun and gentle eyes. "You must be the family my grandson helped," she said, smiling. "Caleb is at the community school. Come, I'll take you there." They walked through the narrow streets, and Henry was impressed with the community's vitality. Despite the obvious difficulties, there was a positive energy in the air. Children played, neighbors chatted on sidewalks, and a sense of solidarity was palpable. "Mrs. Mary, what's it like to live here?" Peter asked, surprising everyone with his genuine curiosity. "Son, here we don't have much money, but we have a lot of heart. When someone needs help, everyone helps. When someone is sick, everyone cares." "And the school? Is it good?" "Ah, the school," she sighed. "The teachers work miracles with the little they have, but they lack many things. Books, computers, even desks sometimes." They arrived at a small yellow-painted building with a simple sign, Hope Community School. In the courtyard, Caleb was helping younger children with homework, sitting in a circle on the ground. "Caleb!" Lily shouted, running to hug him. The boy smiled, clearly happy to see her recovered and full of energy. "How are you?" he asked. "Great." "And you?" she responded, giving him a drawing she had made. "I drew you saving me like a superhero." Caleb laughed, looking at the drawing where he appeared with a red cape. "I'm not a superhero, Lily. I just do what I can." "To me, you are." The school principal, Teacher Anna, approached the group. She was a young woman, about 30, with tired but determined eyes. "Mr. Henry, Caleb told me about you. It's good to meet you in person. The pleasure is ours. Caleb saved us in a way we can't even explain. He is special indeed. He helps other children, never complains about anything, always willing to do good." Henry looked around, observing the precarious conditions of the school. The walls needed painting, there were few desks, and teaching materials were visibly scarce. "Teacher Anna, what are the school's greatest needs?" "My goodness, where to begin?" She laughed with some bitterness. "We need everything. Building renovation, teaching materials, computers, library, even a sports court for the children. And if I could help with some of these things..." The teacher looked at him with surprise. "That would be wonderful, but we don't want to be just another half-abandoned project. We've had promises before." "Teacher, my daughter was in a coma and this boy brought her back to me. There's nothing I can do that would be too big as a form of gratitude." Caleb approached, hearing the conversation. "Mr. Henry, are you sure? It's a lot of money." "Caleb, you gave me back what I hold most precious in the world. How can I put a price on that? But don't do it just for me. Do it for the children who study here, for the families who live here." Henry nodded, understanding the boy's wisdom. "That's exactly why I want to do it." In the following weeks, Henry became completely involved with the community. He hired engineers to assess the school's needs, organized the purchase of teaching, materials and computers, and began to plan a complete renovation. Peter asked to accompany him whenever possible, fascinated by discovering a world where people helped each other despite difficulties. "Dad, why are these children so happy even having so little?" he asked one day. "Maybe because they value what they have, son, and because they know they can count on each other. I want to learn to be like that." Lily, in turn, insisted on bringing toys and books to share with the other children. Her natural generosity flourished even more after the experience she had lived through. "Dad, can I come here whenever we want?" she asked. "Of course, daughter. I think this place will be part of our lives from now on." Caleb observed everything with his characteristic calmness, but Henry perceived the genuine happiness in his eyes as he saw the community being transformed. "Caleb, how did you know I would do all this?" Henry asked one day. "I didn't know, but I felt that you had a big heart. You just needed to find the right way to use it. And you showed me that way." "No, Mr. Henry. Your daughter showed it. When she forgave Peter, when she chose love instead of anger, she taught all of us about what really matters." Henry looked at Lily, who was playing with other children in the schoolyard, and understood that that 7-year-old girl had, in fact, been the greatest teacher of all. 6 months later, Hope Community School was unrecognizable. The walls now shone with new paint and colorful murals painted by the children themselves. A modern library occupied what was once an empty room, and new computers awaited students in a specially prepared room. In the courtyard, a new multi-sport court hosted animated soccer and basketball games. It was the day of the official inauguration of the renovations, and the entire community gathered to celebrate. Henry was beside Caleb, watching children run happily through the new spaces. "I never imagined that it could be so gratifying to see other people happy," Henry confessed. "That's because now you understand that true happiness only exists when it's shared," Caleb answered with his unique wisdom. Lily ran through the courtyard with the red airplane, which had become a symbol of hope not only for her, but for the entire community. Other children followed her, all wanting to play with the famous lucky airplane. Peter was sitting at a table helping younger children with math lessons. In recent months, he had discovered himself to be an excellent volunteer teacher, finding in helping others a way to channel his need to be useful. "Peter, you have a knack for teaching," commented Teacher Anna, approaching. "Have you ever thought about being a teacher when you grow up?" "I do think about it," he answered, smiling. "I want to help children the way you help me understand my own feelings." Teacher Anna smiled, proud of the boy who had transformed. So much in such a short time. Mrs. Mary approached Henry carrying a small tray with homemade sweets. "Mr. Henry, I want you to try my sugar bread. It's my great-grandmother's recipe." "Mrs. Mary, you didn't have to—" "Of course I did," she interrupted, laughing. "It's my way of saying thank you. You've transformed the lives of many families here." "I'm the one who should thank you, Mrs. Mary. You've taught me that true wealth isn't in what we have, but in what we can give." During the party, Caleb approached Lily, who was playing alone for a moment. "Lily, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Were you ever angry with Peter because of what he did?" The girl stopped playing and thought for a moment. Beginning when I woke up in the hospital, I was sad. But then I understood that he didn't do it out of malice. He did it because his heart was hurting." "And how did you know that?" "Because I know my brother. He always took care of me, always protected me. If he hurt me, it was because he himself was hurt." Caleb smiled, impressed with the girl's emotional depth. "You're very wise, Lily." "No, I'm not," she laughed. "I just know that loving is like this. Even when it hurts, we don't stop loving." In the afternoon, the Coleman family was preparing to return home. Henry had bought a house in the neighborhood as well to be able to be present in the community whenever necessary, but they still maintained the farm as their main home. "Caleb, do you have plans for the future?" Henry asked the boy. "I want to study medicine. I want to help people who are sick like I helped Lily." "If you want, I can fund your studies. Consider it an investment in the future of many people you will still help." Caleb was moved. "Mr. Henry, you've already done too much for us." "Caleb, you taught me that there are things that money can't buy, but that I can still use money to buy important things. Your education is one of them." "I accept, but with one condition. When I graduate, I'll come back here to treat the people in my community. Deal." As they said goodbye, Lily approached Caleb with the red airplane in her hands. "I want you to keep it," she said, offering her most precious treasure. "I can't accept it, Lily. It's too important to you. That's exactly why I want to give it to you. To remind you that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones we give as gifts." Caleb took the airplane carefully and handed it back to her. "Then let's share. You keep it, but whenever you come here, bring it so we can play together." "Deal." In the car returning home, Peter broke the silence. "Dad, I have something to confess." Henry felt his heart accelerate. "What is it, son?" "I don't regret what happened." "What do you mean?" "I regret hurting Lily, of course. I regret that every day. But I don't regret that our family got to know Caleb and all those amazing people." Lily turned in her seat. "I don't regret it either, Peter, because now our family is much bigger." Henry smiled, understanding that his children had learned to transform pain into growth, mistake into wisdom, and near tragedy into blessing. "And you know what else?" Lily continued. "Now I know that Daddy loves both of us equally, because I saw him taking care of you when you were sad, and of me when I was sick. How do you know that? Because true love is like that. It takes care of everyone, no matter what happens. Henry looked in the rearview mirror at his two children, who were now animatedly discussing plans for the next visit to the community, and knew that his family had found something much greater than happiness. They had found purpose. The red airplane would continue to fly, but now it was no longer limited to the farm fields. It had an entire sky ahead, full of possibilities to spread love, hope, and second chances. When they arrived home, the three embraced in the farmyard, in the same place where everything had begun. But now they were no longer the same people. They were better, more complete, more connected not only with each other but with the world around them. And so, a near tragedy transformed into the greatest blessing that family could have received, the discovery that love is infinite when,